Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Fiona Seers, and I'm the Head of Examining at the Federal Office of AMEB. I'm currently in Naarm, otherwise known as Melbourne, on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to our elders, past, present, and emerging. Today, we are talking about our new Piano for Leisure syllabus, which we are very excited to have launched recently. The syllabus sees a change to the technical work for all Piano for Leisure grades. However, there are no changes to the repertoire or grade books. The new technical work is drawn from the 2018 technical work publications that are also used for our piano syllabus. To talk us through how it all works, I'm very pleased to be joined by our syllabus consultant, Stuart Storer. Stuart holds a Master of Music from the University of Adelaide and a Licentiate of Music from AMEB. He has extensive teaching and performing experience, having taught privately and at colleges in Adelaide for over 35 years. He has worked as a freelance musician, performing in bands, as an accompanist for choirs, singers and instrumentalists, and has given performances and masterclasses in Australia and Malaysia. He has several original piano pieces published in various exam syllabuses, including AMEB. He is an AMEB examiner, an AMEB Rock School examiner, and currently holds the position of Acting Chief Rock School examiner for AMEB. Stuart was a syllabus consultant for the Series 3 Piano for Leisure publications and for this new syllabus as well. Before I hand over to Stuart to talk us through how it all works, I would like to thank the syllabus reviewer, Katrina Love, for her work on this new syllabus as well. I'd also like to mention the creators of the AMEB technical work publications, which are now part of the Piano for Leisure syllabus. The principal consultant on these was David Lockett, and the technical exercises were composed by Jocelyn Kochi and Karen Bailey. You are very welcome to use the Q&A function for any questions you may have, and the chat function is also available at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I will keep an eye on these throughout Stuart's presentation, and my colleagues Helena and Maxine, who are behind the scenes, are there to help as well. We will have some time at the end of Stuart's presentation to answer some of your questions. So, hello, Stuart.
Hello, thank you, Fiona. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And hello, everyone. I hope you're all well and hope you're all having a restful Sunday. And thank you for taking time out on your valuable leisure time to join us in this webinar. So I'd like to start by giving a brief overview of what I'll be covering today. I'll give you an outline of what Piano for Leisure is, and I'm sure that many of you are already familiar with the Piano for Leisure syllabus, but for those of you who may not, or you may be considering Piano for Leisure for the first time, I'll be having a look at the syllabus requirements for each grade, and I'll be giving a demonstration of each of the technical exercises that's been selected for the new Piano for Leisure syllabus. I'll highlight what changes have been made and perhaps just as importantly, what hasn't changed. And as Fiona said, if you do have any questions along the way, myself or Fiona are happy to answer them at the end. So let's jump in and let's have a look at Piano for Leisure 2022. So before I jump in and examine all the nuts and bolts of the new syllabus, full details of this new syllabus are in the 2022 manual, which you can purchase in hard copy via the AMEB or from your favorite music retailer, or you can just purchase and download just the Piano for Leisure syllabus from the AMEB website. Keep in mind as well that this is a new syllabus and it has new subject codes. And if you are still contemplating putting students through using the old syllabus, you will need to consult the 2021 manual for details of that syllabus. And there will be a 2-year overlap of this syllabus. So let's start by examining just what Piano for Leisure is. And this actually made me think when I was invited to revise the technical work for this syllabus. And I was kind of thinking, how radical do the changes need to be? For instance, Is there a need for jazz scales such as modal scales, altered scales, pentatonics, blues scales, dominants? Is there a need for different forms of arpeggios, major seventh arpeggios, and all that sort of thing? So I actually looked in the manual of syllabuses, and if I refer you to that, if you have a copy available with you, from page 92 of the syllabus, this is a 2022 version, Piano for Leisure is designed for all ages. It explores popular repertoire, including well-loved standards from the classics, jazz styles, and arrangements of movie themes and popular songs. But for me, I felt that the most telling part is this final statement. Catering to a wide variety of tastes and interests, its unique combination of styles complements the traditional piano syllabus. So in examining what Piano for Leisure is, let's have a look and see what Piano for Leisure isn't. And Piano for Leisure is not a jazz or a contemporary popular music syllabus. If you're interested in doing that with your students, then I would heartily recommend the Rock School syllabus. Some of you may or may not have been familiar with the AMEB CPM syllabus, which has now been withdrawn, and that has been superseded by Rock School. So just to recap on that, Piano for Leisure is not a jazz or a contemporary syllabus, and I'd refer you to Rock School if that's what you're interested in. So many people have asked me since, why was there a need for change? And we can sum that up in basically 3 points. The first of which is Piano for Leisure. The technical work in Piano for Leisure has always been a subset of the corresponding piano syllabus. The last major overhaul of Piano for Leisure took place in 2010, coinciding with the release of the Series 3 grade books, which are the purple series. So that was basically the last time that the technical work was overhauled. What happened in the interim is in 2018, when the classical syllabus was reviewed, and there was a substantial reworking of the technical requirements for the piano syllabus. And that largely removed the link between the two syllabuses. So we felt that there was a need to realign the two syllabuses and to bring Piano for Leisure back into line with the classical syllabus. And if we have a look, these were the aims of the review. So the first aim, as I've just said, is to realign the technical work in Piano for Leisure with the Piano 2018 syllabus. It was important as well that we maintain a logical progression to ensure that all the keys are covered from preliminary right through to grade 8. Perhaps the most important aim, though, is not to overburden students with large amounts of technical requirements. I think we all have students who would rather not practice technical work, even though important as it is, they'd much rather be involved in performing and playing their music. So it was a real challenge not to overburden students with large amounts of technical work for Piano for Leisure. By the same token, we have to ensure that the technical requirements are commensurate with the grade expectations. And finally, to introduce the requirement to present technical exercises. So as you remember, the 2018 classical syllabus review incorporated technical exercises. So I'd like to now play you a short video clip of David Lockett explaining the rationale behind the inclusion of technical exercises.
The technical work was quite an interesting aspect of the syllabus to develop, because we felt very early on that there was much more to piano playing than could be achieved just by playing scales and arpeggios, important though they are. We felt that there were things that could be done that would encourage a more free, more natural engagement with the instrument itself, a greater feeling of oneness with the instrument, a greater feeling of freedom and naturalness when playing it. So in thinking about what these elements were, we came up with a number of technical things, aspects of technique, that we thought we might be able to develop through a series of really focused technical exercises. So the way this worked was that I essentially set a blueprint for each grade. I listed certain things which I thought would be helpful in the development of technique, maybe things that would help scales and arpeggios to be better played, maybe other aspects of technique that scales and arpeggios didn't develop. And then I handed that over to a couple of really gifted composers, and they worked with those blueprints to develop technical exercises that developed those particular aspects. So it was a really, really rewarding process. There was Joe Cocci, a very experienced teacher and a really successful composer, who worked at the level 1 technical material. She considered the aspects that I'd identified. She came up with some draft exercises, sent them to me, and we had a bit of correspondence about them. Really very engaging pieces. She really captured the intent of what I hoped could be achieved in these exercises. And she came up with some fabulous little compositions that will be easy to learn, but will be really, really helpful in the development of technique. For level 2, the more advanced level, Karen Bailey, a very, very popular Australian composer, also worked at the material that I provided him with. And again, we had a very engaged and very pleasurable cooperation in developing these exercises.
Okay, so having heard the rationale behind the inclusion of the technical exercises, we now have new technical requirements in line with the Piano 2018 syllabus. We have included technical exercises from the Piano Technical Workbook Level 1 and 2 publications. We have new forms of scales. So we now have natural minors, we have grand scale format, we have polyrhythmic scales. Chord progressions have been introduced from grade 6, and many of you of a certain vintage would remember that chord progressions did used to be part of AMEB technical work. They are now back in there from grade 6 onwards. And more importantly, is now less technical work than the old syllabus. And generally speaking, it's roughly 50% of what the classical syllabus would require. So the significant changes, candidates will now need to have the piano technical workbook for each examination. So we have workbook level 1, which is preliminary to grade 4, and level 2, which is grade 5 to grade 8. They now form part of the materials required for the examination. In preliminary, all scales are 1 octave only. Natural minors are in every level 1 exam, which is from preliminary to grade 4. We have technical exercises in every grade. Grand scale format from grade 6. And if you're not sure what a grand scale format is, stay tuned because I will be demonstrating it. Chord progressions from grade 6 and polyrhythmic scales in grade 7 and grade 8. I'm just going to leave this presentation shortly and just show you a comparison screen. So I'll stop this PowerPoint, if you can just bear with me, and I'll reshare a different document. And I'm hoping that you can all see that. I'll enlarge it slightly. Okay, maybe that's a little too big. All right. And unfortunately, I can't show this full screen, but if you go to the top right of your screen and click on where it says view, and if you switch to standard, it should then occupy most of your screen. So I'm not going to dwell on this for too long, but this is just essentially, it's a comparison from what we have in the old Piano for Leisure syllabus here in column B. This is the new Piano for Leisure syllabus in column C, and the existing technical requirements in the Piano 2018 syllabus. And the important thing here is that all the tempo, touch, and dynamic requirements are contained in the technical workbook. There's a slowing down of the tempo from preliminary from this syllabus. The old syllabus is 100 beats per minute for the similar motion scales. It is now down to 76. And that's done primarily to focus on hand shape, tone quality, and just general control on the piano, keeping in mind that that is a minimum speed. Okay, so candidates are permitted to go quicker if they wish, but the focus is on correct hand position, tone production, and rhythmic fluency. You can see we have natural minor, which I believe is really the best logical way to understand the construction of harmonic and melodic minors. And now we have the introduction of exercise PB, which I will be showing you shortly. P stands for preliminary, and it's exercise B, 1 and 2. There are, generally speaking, there are 3 exercises per level, per grade, and Piano for Leisure, we have selected essentially just 1 exercise for each level. Okay, and the color coding on this side here is you can see the carryover keys from one scale, from one exam to the next. That is no longer in operation. So it's generally speaking, it's a new grade and entirely new scales. All right, so if we just skim very quickly down, and we can see that the old syllabus had 5, the new syllabus has 4 plus the exercise, and the classical syllabus has 8 plus 2 exercises. So again, roughly that 50% that I mentioned earlier. Let's compare grade 1. Previous syllabus, a total of 8 scales. We now have 6 plus the exercise, as opposed to 11 in grade 1. Okay, I'll just very slowly scroll that down so that you can see. And as I mentioned before, we have the natural minor in all levels. Now, if we just fast forward now to grade 6. So grade 6 here is where we have the grand scale coming in. And if we compare the amount of technical work in the old syllabus is 13, now we are 10 plus the exercise, and the classical is 23, the exercise. Okay, all right, so I will leave that and return back to my original presentation. All right. So that was an outline of the changes. What hasn't changed? Well, series 1, 2, 3, and 4 grade books may still be used with the new syllabus. The old syllabus technical work will remain, and that may be used for the next 2 years. However, that's only if the candidate enrolls for the old syllabus, which is published in the 2021 manual. Remember, it's the subject coding. You need to be very careful. All right, if you have any doubt, ask your state office. They'd be more than willing to assist you. But it's the syllabus coding that you have to be very careful with. The new syllabus coding is 633. So for preliminary, it's 6330 right through to 6338. So if you're looking at entering when the time comes to entering your students, any Piano for Leisure syllabus with 633 is the new syllabus. We've maintained arpeggios and dominant and diminished sevenths in root position only. Historically, they have never been done in inversions in Piano for Leisure, and we have maintained that. All the other syllabus requirements are unchanged. So the requirement for oral tests or sight reading at the candidate's choice is still in there. Essentially, the only change is the technical work. The manual listings haven't been altered either. And just remembering as well, as with all AMEB syllabus, there is no mixing or matching permitted. Remember, if you are doing the old technical work, you are doing the old syllabus. The new technical work is a new syllabus. All right, so here's an overview of the Piano for Leisure syllabus. So we now have, here's the technical work, which consists of 2 exercises up to grade 3, 1 exercise from grade 4 onwards, scales, arpeggios, chord progressions from grade 6 onwards. We have 3 pieces, one of which may still be an own choice work. And an own choice work can essentially be a piece of the teacher's choosing or the candidate's choosing, as long as it's commensurate with the grade that's being attempted. So, you know, the idea is not that if you're doing a grade 4 exam, you submit a grade 1 piece as a free choice. Try to keep it commensurate with the level that you're doing. An own choice piece can even be a student's own composition as well. If that does occur, the student will need to have it written out in full and a copy provided for the examiner. Oral tests or sight reading at the candidate's choosing, that hasn't changed, and general knowledge, that hasn't changed. All right, so hopefully that is clear so far. Let's jump in and have a look at the technical exercises. So what I try to do in selecting the technical exercises is to try to highlight the main technical features that students are going to encounter along their piano learning pathway. And I think the very first important exercise is the ability to have smooth thumb turning. So the whole purpose of this exercise is for smooth thumb passing, creating and playing with an even tone, and having a relaxed hand shape. And if we look here, this is actually taken from the technical workbook level 1. Here we have, it outlines the purpose of what the exercise is and important things here to aim for. So let's have a listen. This is the first one, and it runs consecutively into the second exercise. So you can see, very important to create that smooth thumb passing. Oops, sorry, let me just move to the next screen. All right, now also what we have quite often in the technical workbook is a series of optional exercises. And these are optional, they're not to be used for examination, but they do provide a really useful preparatory exercise. So you can see with the crazy crab walk, it's turning the thumb underneath the second finger. And an exercise that I like to do with my students is to actually get them to touch the tip of their finger with the thumb. And you can try this at home if you like. And you just touch your fingertip together and then try with your middle finger. And you can see that the action of the thumb is exactly the same as required for when we are playing scales, that nice smooth transit of the thumb underneath the fingers. So I find that a really useful prep exercise to do with my students. And an extension of that exercise, instead of touching the fingertip, is to touch here. So just touching this joint of the finger here, because that then creates more of a curve on the thumb for then passing underneath the hand. Okay, so that's a really useful prep exercise extension activity. But I need to stress these are not to be used for the examination. They are purely optional extras. All right, so let's move on and have a look at the grade 1 exercise. And the grade 1 exercise is for broken chords. So broken chords as a standalone arpeggio or pattern, if you like, they are no longer part of the requirements. Instead, the broken chord requirements are found in the technical exercise. So technical exercise 1A and 1B, which is a flying leap and a running jump. So it's a broken chord pattern. We are looking for confident shifts between hand positions and rhythmic stability. The rhythm on these two exercises is actually quite tricky because of the placement of the ties. But here we go. Let's have a listen. So I think you can hear where the difficulty lies in the rhythm on that one. Okay, so again, we have these little hints, if you like, the purpose of the exercise and the important things to aim for. And again, if we look on the next page, we have a preparatory exercise. Now, I would not have my students try to attempt doing this hands together. I think that would be way too tricky at grade 1 to try to do a broken chord hands together. But the first preparatory exercise is to play in block chords, where you're playing all 3 notes together. And importantly, the fingering as well. 5-3-1, 5-2-1, 5-3-1, 5-3-1. How many of us have students that will attempt to do this using a middle finger on every single chord? I think we all have students that will try that, or even a second finger on every chord. So that change of finger on the first inversion chord is very, very important. So after the block chord exercise, we then move to a split chord exercise, where you play just 1 note followed by 2 notes together. And then finally, the extra for experts. And again, we have to stress, not for examination. This is a G major broken chord. I would approach this in terms of having my student initially take a break after each triplet. So rather than attempting to run everything together, I think it's far more important that we try to get the fingering under control, but then double back and try to do it as a consecutive exercise. And again, you can do it in different keys. You don't have to do it all in G major. You can have them do them all on the white keys. So some of them would be a minor chord and some would be a major chord. Be creative in your teaching. Just because something isn't set for the examination doesn't mean to say you don't have to teach it. Okay, so let's move on and have a look at grade 2 and be ready for some audience participation here, folks. All right, so we have a blues scale and we are aiming for smooth thumb passing, no sudden or large movements of elbows, and a swing rhythm. Important to feel the pulse when playing a swing rhythm. And hands up if you've had trouble in teaching a swing rhythm to your students, or if you've had trouble in learning a swing rhythm yourself. I would imagine that there's at least 150 hands up here. I think we've all had trouble teaching a swing rhythm. So here we go for some audience participation. All right, now basically, if you cannot skip, you can't swing. Okay, that's point number 1. In order to swing, you have to skip. So first things first, I would have my students skipping around the room singing Teddy Bear's Picnic or just saying Humpty Dumpty, because they need to be able to feel that swing rhythm. Second point is you cannot do a swing rhythm if you cannot keep a steady pulse. So here I've put some words in, and they're just jazz syllables, courtesy of Karen Bailey. Thank you, Karen. But what we have here is a long syllable is the do, and a short syllable we say ba. And for a triplet is da da ka. So here we go, do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do. Do ba da da ka do ba do ba da da ka do. Okay, and remember that the do is always falling on the beat. So let's do that. And if you just tap on your knee and don't worry about singing in pitch. Okay, after 4, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do. Do ba da da ka do ba do ba da da ka do. Okay, then the next part of the exercise is with one hand you tap the beat on your knee, but you click your fingers on beats 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and ready? 3, 4. Do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do. Do ba da da ka do ba do ba da da ka do. And there's your swing rhythm. Okay, you have to do whole body learning to do a swing rhythm. It's got to have a skipping feeling to it. It is not the same as a dotted quaver, semiquaver rhythm, and keeping a steady pulse is essential. I hope that helps. All right, now grade 3. Quite a tricky exercise in grade 3 because the thumb is passing underneath the 4th finger and we have to observe all of the dynamic contours. Here we go. Quite a tricky exercise, I'm sure you'll agree. All right, so that's the grade 3 exercise, and coming on to grade 4. So this is just a single exercise for grade 4, and it's called Winter Winds. It's an exercise in fluency, clarity, and accuracy, preparing hand shapes because they're constantly changing, having rhythmic stability and the ability to shape phrases. Now, I need to add at this point as well, from an examiner's perspective, when we are hearing these in the exam, we have been asked to actually comment on those qualities. So essentially, we're commenting on the musicality of the performances of these exercises, not just a case of ticking them off and saying, yes, that's done. Okay, and the fingerings for all of these exercises are compulsory. No alternative fingerings are permitted for these. Let's have a listen to grade 4. Again, we have some options here. Try this first. Optional, not for examination. So when learning Winter Winds, try practicing with the following rhythms. So instead of flowing semiquavers, try going da 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 da. And then the second exercise, da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum. And then the third option is a dotted rhythm. Bum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum. Okay. Now I would probably suggest to do that after the examination, not before the examination, because we really don't want to be confusing students with doing different ways. And I think quite often if we do all sorts of variations and alternative versions, when it comes to exam time, they forget which version they're supposed to be doing. So approach that one with caution, I'd suggest. All right, let's have a look at grade 5. So grade 5 represents the start of level 2, grade 5 to grade 8. And this exercise is called Positive Pulse. It's essentially an exercise in keeping a stable rhythmic pulse, obviously, as the title suggests, and accurate subdivisions of the beat. At the same time, observing dynamics and articulations. Here we go. Let's have a listen. Okay, so just a right hand exercise on that one. Now there is a lovely accompaniment here, but again, not for examination purposes. For examination purposes, it's just purely unaccompanied. But this creates a nice little duet that you can try with your students. I think in learning this one, the first thing to establish will be the rhythm away from the piano. So again, I'd be doing some whole body learning. I'd be thinking of doing maybe some percussion and really feeling those rhythmic subdivisions. Perhaps even if I was really creative, I'd be coming up with some words to fit each of those rhythms. All right, let's move on to grade 6. This is a gorgeous exercise. All right. Very important that we have even 3s against 2s. Hands up if you have problems with 3s against 2s, or hands up if your students have problems with 3s against 2s. All right. Now, let's have a little bit more audience participation. You're not going to escape your Sunday so lightly in my webinars. All right. Now, normally I would tap your knees, but you can't see my knees. So I'm going to tap my shoulders and I'm going to do it mirror image. So if we have a look here where it says try this first, clap the following rhythm, and it is both right, left, right, both right, left, right, both right, left, right. Let's go. Are you ready? Let's go after 3. 1, 2, 3. Both right, left, right, both right, left, right, both right, left, right, both right, left, right. Okay, good job. Let's try that again and we'll gradually go quicker and you'll start to feel that you're doing 2s against 3s. All right, are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Both right, left, right, 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 both right, left, right. There you go. That's 2s against 3s. And then you can flip it around and have the left hand doing the triplets as opposed to the right hand doing the triplets. Now, there also is, where is my mouse disappeared to? Sorry, what have I done here? My mouse has just decided to vanish. All right, okay. And what we have is an extension of this exercise. All right. Do apologize. My mouse is just deciding to have a mind of its own. All right, so there's a grade 6 extension. My apologies for that. And again, extra for experts. And you would have to really have your wits about you to be able to do this one. Here we go. Let's have a listen. Very well written exercise. All right, let's move on. Let's have a look at grade 7. But before we do that, let's have a look at a grand scale. So this is an E flat major grand scale. And just for those of you who may never have come across a grand scale before, it consists of 2 octaves in similar motion. And then the right hand keeps ascending for another 2 octaves while the left hand doubles back. So you're effectively doing contrary motion in the middle of the scale, and then finally back into the middle and conclude it with a similar motion. It sounds complicated, it's not really. Here we go. So that's the E flat major grand scale in grade 6. All right, let's move on and have a look at the chord progressions. And all we need to look at in grade 6 is G major. But as I stressed before, there's no reason why we shouldn't be looking at the other keys as well, the F major and the A major. But for the examination, it's G major only, and these have to be performed from memory. I think it's really essential that we're teaching our students keyboard harmony. And this is just a simple 1-5-1 progression with, if you look at the left hand, you can see the left hand is the same in every instance. And the right hand is a first inversion, second inversion, first inversion chord. And the second bar is a second inversion, root position, second inversion. And then finally, the final bar is a root position, first inversion, second inversion. Okay. So yeah, I would definitely be looking at doing these in different keys as well. And I think just, yep, keyboard harmony is an essential skill for all of our students to be learning. All right, now the grade 7 exercise is an exercise in octaves, because I felt that octaves are an important part of the Piano for Leisure repertoire. And this is the octave activation exercise. Okay, so important things to aim for: clean, light execution, consistent tonal quality from one octave to the next, consistent tonal balance between the two notes of each octave, and be very careful with this one if you have candidates with smaller hands. There's a health alert on page 47, which I'm going to show you in a second. Okay, so we're definitely not wanting to foster any tension or any unnecessary stress or strain on our students' hands. So this is the health alert, and I know you can all read, so I'll not bore you with reading all through it, but I've just highlighted the important part, which is point 5. Take every opportunity to release any tension that may accrue. Octave activation has built-in stress release points, if you like, and I've highlighted them on the score here. So as you can see, where these are highlighted, we have the rests on there. And if you can imagine that, try to imagine that your students' hands have got a helium balloon tied to it. So as they play that note, they just lift up slightly on each instance, and that will just kind of alleviate any strain or any stress which is building up in terms of playing these octaves. All right, so that's the grade 7 exercise. Now here's a D major polyrhythmic. We have triplets in the right hand and duplets in the left hand. For grade 7, we are only talking about a D major scale. So the B harmonic minor is not part of the requirements for Piano for Leisure, but I'll make another point. Just because it's not examinable in Piano for Leisure doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't be learning or teaching it. So here's the D major polyrhythmic. Simple, really. All right, and the chord progressions in grade 7, now it's a 1-4-5-1 chord progression, and it's just F major. So just brought in that chord 4 harmony, 1-4-5-1. Again, has to be performed from memory. Okay. And if we move on to grade 8, active octavation. So this is diatonic and chromatic octaves, again using the arm. The two note slurs may be pedaled, and black note octaves can be played with either thumb and 5th or thumb and 4th finger. Okay, you may remember earlier that I said that the fingerings are compulsory. If you look on this one, there is no fingerings written in. So it's just a suggestion that you can use finger 4 or finger 5 for black key octaves. Let's have a look at this active octavation. Okay, and the chord progression, E major polyrhythmic. So this is the opposite of the D major polyrhythmic. The D major polyrhythmic had triplets in the right hand and duplets in the left. This is the other way around, and notice how the hands are starting 2 octaves apart, because if you start closer, your left hand is going to crash into your right hand. Here we go. Okay, so that's the E major polyrhythmic. All right, and the chord progression for grade 8 is now a 1-4-1-C-5-1. So we have that second inversion of the tonic chord prior to the dominant chord, and just in the key of E flat major. So 1-4-1-C-5-1 chord progression. All right. So the point that I'd like to make about all of these technical exercises, they all need a musical approach to technique. We're looking for a sense of phrasing. We're looking for the ability to shape the phrases. We're looking for dynamic control, technical control, obviously, secure rhythmic subdivisions, and a sense of the pulse. I think it's important for us to realize at this point that having a secure technique and playing musically are interlinked. And playing with dynamic shadings, shaping of the phrases, they're all essential elements of what playing piano is all about. And really, it's not a coincidence that these points form the majority of the assessment criteria in all levels of every piano syllabus. So when we are examining, we are looking at musicality, we're looking at technical control, we're looking at the ability to shape the phrases, we're looking at the ability to play with good rhythms and an understanding of the rhythmic subdivisions. It's all interlinked. It's all part of the same, it's 2 sides of the same coin. We have technique and we have musicianship. And the purpose of these exercises is really to put the whole lot together so that students are seeing technical exercises as being beneficial to their overall playing. All right, so thank you for bearing with me so far. I don't have much more to say. I will just go through some points to keep in mind. So just to recap, the revised technical work is a subset of the classical piano syllabus. Teachers are encouraged to teach beyond the syllabus in covering technical work and all the other exercises for the grade with their students. So as a point that I keep dwelling on, just because it's not set for the examination doesn't mean that we shouldn't be teaching it. We really need to be giving our students every opportunity to extend their ability, extend their musicianship, extend their musicality. Scales and arpeggios must be performed from memory in all grades. However, the technical exercises do not need to be memorized, which is why the technical workbooks need to be purchased and brought to the examination. The tempo, touch, and dynamic markings for scales and arpeggios, which are published in Piano Technical Work Levels 1 and 2, that's the 2018 books that we referred to earlier, all of those markings are applicable to the new Piano for Leisure syllabus. And just a few points while we're speaking of tempo markings for scales, remember that they are the minimum expected for the grade. And examiners may well comment if technical work is performed substantially slower than those minimum tempo markings. Regardless of how accurate the scale is, essentially, it's not meeting the syllabus objective, which says to perform the scales at or above the minimum tempo. So significant fluctuations in tempo or significant reductions of tempo, examiners may well comment. Now, obviously, we are not sitting there with a metronome, and if the speed should be 100 and a candidate plays it at 98, we reach for our pens and suddenly try to mark them down. That's not it. But we can tell if the tempo is significantly under what it should be. So please keep that in mind. Candidates are required to perform the technical exercises according to the fingerings, the phrasings, and the articulations which are noted on the page. And examiners are required to comment on that. So we have just been mentioning how important it is to play with musicality. Examiners are going to comment on the quality of these technical exercises. And just a little warning for students who like to play Russian roulette and not learn the scales that they dislike. The exam timings have been maintained, so it is far more likely that the examiner will hear every scale which is set for that grade. It's no longer just going to be a selection at the examiner's discretion. We have maintained the exam timings, so therefore it is far more likely that the candidate will be asked every single scale which is set at that level. All right, so I'd just like to say a few things. This is the AMEB Piano menu. This is the options that we offer. And we start at the very, very beginner level with P-plate piano, which consists of 3 levels. Level 1, 2, and 3, designed for absolute beginners. And all the candidate has to do for P-plate piano is perform 3 pieces in the examination, and that's it. 3 pieces of their choosing from the book. We then have Piano for Leisure, and side by side is the classical syllabus, the white book that you can see on your screen, starting at preliminary and going all the way through to grade 8. And both of these are capped off with a certificate of performance or a certificate of completion. And then finally, we have Rock School, which begins at debut level and goes all the way through to grade 8. And there are diplomas available for Rock School beyond that as well. These are all available from the AMEB online shop or from your music retailer. All right, and just in terms of options, because you probably see when you're entering candidates that we mention things such as comprehensive exams, we mention repertoire exams, we mention collaborative. I know there's a little bit of confusion about all of these, so hopefully I can allay any fears that you might have, and let's have a look at what is what. So a comprehensive exam is available in both Piano for Leisure and the classical syllabus. It's the traditional examination that we all know and love, that we've all been there and done that, consists of the technical work, consists of pieces and oral tests, sight reading and general knowledge. So that's what we mean by a comprehensive exam. We also have a collaborative exam, which is applicable only to level 2 classical. So a collaborative exam is not applicable in Piano for Leisure. You cannot do a collaborative Piano for Leisure exam. It's only from grade 5 of the classical syllabus. So in grades 5 and grade 6, one piece may be a piano duet. In grade 7 and grade 8, 2 pieces may be a piano duo work. So the difference between a duet and a duo is a piano duet is for 2 people at one piano, and a duo is for piano and another solo instrument. Now, any works which are submitted as a collaborative endeavor have to be chosen from the listings in the current manual of syllabuses. So there is no free choice component here in a collaborative exam. Okay, and then finally we have a repertoire exam, which is just purely a performance exam. So there is no technical work, there are no peripheral tests such as oral tests, sight reading or general knowledge. And in Piano for Leisure, it consists of 4 pieces only from preliminary right the way through to grade 8. And the classical may only be used with the 2018 classical syllabus, not the old piano syllabus. In level 1, 4 pieces are required, and in level 2, 5 pieces are required. Now, you will need to consult the manual for performance times for each of these grades, because there are maximum performance times. Okay, so hopefully that's cleared up any confusion. Just think of comprehensive as being the traditional exam with technical work pieces, extra lists where applicable, oral tests and sight reading. Repertoire is just purely a performance exam, just purely pieces, and then collaborative from level 2 of the classical syllabus. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope that's answered any questions that you may have had. All of the technical work requirements for the new Piano for Leisure syllabus are listed in the manual, the 2022 manual, and a recording of this webinar will be available shortly. Thank you so much for your attention, and Fiona and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stuart. That's been absolutely fantastic, and the chat and the Q&A have been going off with lots of comments and questions. But thank you for all of your thoughts and your teaching tips, as well as just running through all of the latest technical work for us. There are some questions in the Q&A, which I thought would be great if you could answer them in person, live. We have managed to answer quite a few just in the text as well. But Stuart, one of the main questions, which I think you have now actually answered, is about which parts of the technical work and the exercises need to be memorised and which don't. Could you just go through that again, with the scales and the exercises and what the differences are there?
Sure. So essentially, all of the technical exercises, so the things such as, you know, this little piggy and off to market in terms of preliminary, they do not have to be memorized, but the scales and arpeggios do. So the only thing which does not have to be memorized in the examination are the technical exercises, but all of the scales, all of the chord progressions, all the arpeggios, the grand scales, etc., all have to be memorized.
Okay, so therefore somebody else has asked, should the candidate bring the technical workbook with them to the exam in order to play those exercises?
Yes.
I guess the answer is yes.
Ideally, yes. Yes. Fantastic.
Another common question that's come up is about, let me see if I can find one. It's about the size of the student's hands and if they're unable to perform it exactly as the fingering is written in the books. Are they allowed to adapt the technical exercises and the fingerings for their students?
There are notes for relevant exercises to that effect. So for instance, with the octave exercise, reasonable modifications of tempo are permitted. So that definitely helps a smaller hand. For the grade 7 octave exercise, it even suggests that the candidate try to perform it as a split octave. So, you know, just playing the bottom note and then the top note. But I think, I mean, you would hope that by grade 7 that a candidate's hand is big enough to actually reach an octave in the first place. I mean, it does happen. We get youngsters who are very talented, get to grade 7 and are struggling to stretch an octave. But yeah, generally speaking, any modifications of fingerings, they're generally speaking not permitted unless it specifically suggests a modification in the technical exercise.
Great, thank you for that. I have another question here. What happens if a grade 1 student has only prepared their 3 pieces plus technical work in preparation for a comprehensive exam? However, when the date comes, the only option due to COVID restrictions is a repertoire exam. They then have to, and the video presentation is of 4 pieces. So I can answer that one. Yes, if the repertoire is your only option, then you do need to fulfill the repertoire requirements, and you would have to add that extra piece in. Okay, so we've talked about that. Here's a bit of a curly one for you, Stuart. If exam pieces are given an overall mark of A or A+, does a lower mark for technical work bring the overall mark down to a B or a B+? I'm not sure that that's even possible to answer, but do you want to sort of to say how you would approach the balance between the pieces and the technical work?
Well, examiners are marking each exam holistically in relevance to the assessment criteria, which is in the manual of syllabuses. So it's important that all teachers are familiar with that assessment criteria and the syllabus objectives, because that's essentially what we are using to prepare our students for the exam. And it's the same set of benchmarks that examiners are using to arrive at their examination decision. I think if you have a candidate who does perform their pieces particularly well, you would normally expect that the technical work would be comparable to that as well. It's very, very seldom that you have an inferior set of technical work, but then the pieces are absolutely phenomenal. But basically, a short answer would be yes, if in the examiner's opinion the technical work is not up to standard, it could well reduce the marking.
Yeah.
It could well.
Okay, great. Okay, here's an interesting one. Mandy has asked for students presenting later grades, so for example, grade 4 and upwards, and they haven't learned the exercises, perhaps because they haven't done an exam before or have no exam experience. Would you recommend that they look back and incorporate earlier grade exercise in their practice so that they can develop some of the articulations and fluency needed?
Definitely. And I would actually extend that and say not just the exercises which are set for the lower grades, but just work through each exercise systematically. They're great exercises. They're musical. They're relatively easy to learn, notwithstanding some tricky rhythms in the grade 1 broken chord exercise. But they're a great way of teaching technique, but still keeping a bit of a fun element, a bit of a musical element happening.
Yeah, great. Somebody did ask about the tempo indications and where do they find out what tempo to play the scales and exercises? But I think you covered that in your summary. They can find that information in the technical workbooks, can't they?
Correct. In the technical workbooks, it's quite clear. It gives a metronome speed for each exercise and for each technical piece. Technical element. So the scales, arpeggios, and so on. Great.
And Sally's asked, what is the purpose of making students learn natural minor scales?
Because when we're teaching, well, let's just rewind right to the very start. So normally we teach C major first, and then we say to our students, okay, I'm now going to teach you A harmonic minor, which is a relative minor of C major. It shares the same key signature. And then lo and behold, we go and play A harmonic minor and suddenly there's a G sharp crops up. And your student will invariably say, well, why is there a G sharp? And you just sort of fob them off and say, oh, well, it's a raised seventh. But if we approach it from the perspective of a natural minor, the natural minor is essentially the C major scale starting 3 notes lower. So the natural minor is essentially it's a major scale, but starting 3 semitones lower. It's using exactly the same set of notes. We then say, yes, okay, so that's a natural minor. We are doing a harmonic minor. We have to raise the 7th. And you physically have your student count from A 7 up so that they can now see why it's a G sharp and not a G natural. And it's an accidental. And then it makes more sense when we start looking at melodic minors, because then you can see we are raising the 6th and the 7th ascending, but when we descend, we're descending as a natural minor. And to me, it's the only logical way of teaching how minor scales are constructed, to take it from a natural minor viewpoint.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thanks for that explanation. There's a few more questions coming through. I'm trying to keep up with them all here. Here's an interesting one. The chords, are they supposed to be played legato, or can the students use the wrists and arms?
For the chord progression.
Yes, I guess that's what they're referring to.
Yeah, they can use the pedal for that. There's no reason why not.
Okay.
Is that coming in grade 6? So it's level 2. It's a good vehicle for teaching legato pedaling.
Great. So somebody else is asking for the Catch Me If You Can and the Skater Chaser. Can they change it for small hands if they need to? it seemed to be quite a lot of a chat about students who do have small hands, and I think David Lockett's word on this was when he wrote those scales and exercises was that yes, you can adapt them if you have to, if the student can't play them as they are, as Stuart explained earlier.
I think examiners will be lenient. I think examiners would exercise some discretion on that.
Yes. Okay, just looking over here, some more questions in the chat. We don't want to... Excuse me for a moment. For level 2 students, if they choose video exam, can they use their digital piano to do the recording? Yes, digital pianos are fine for the recording. What is the difference between the Piano for Leisure video repertoire and the piano repertoire video? So Piano for Leisure obviously uses the Piano for Leisure syllabus, and the piano repertoire uses the piano syllabus, two very distinct syllabuses. So whichever one your candidate is enrolled for, you need to make sure that you're choosing repertoire from that particular syllabus. So I think that answers that. Yes, there has been quite a few questions about the sight reading requirements for this new syllabus. Nothing's changed, but nothing's changed in this particular syllabus, but it sounds like there might be some error in the syllabus, in the requirements. So we will check that and get back to all those people who are interested. We might actually answer the question in an email when we send out the video. I think we might actually leave it there for today. If you do have some more questions, so if you have some questions that have gone unanswered, you're very welcome to email us, and the best email to use is marketing@ameb.edu.au. So that's marketing@ameb.edu.au, and we will get back to you. We will be sending out a video of this webinar. So for those of you who have logged in a little bit late due to the time difference, we're sorry about that, but you will be able to watch it later. So just before we sign off, I would just like to thank all of the people who have been involved in putting the syllabus together. Stephen Hodgson, our Head of Publishing at AMEB, and our CEO, Bernard De Pasquale, Katrina Love, our Syllabus Reviewer, and also David Lockett, Joe Cocci and Karen Bailey for their work on the technical work publications. And of course, a final thank you to you, Stuart, for your work as syllabus consultant and for this fantastic presentation today. Thanks also to Helena and Maxine for making this webinar run so smoothly in the background there. And of course, thank you to all of you for attending. We really appreciate you taking your time out of a Sunday and joining us, and we hope it's been useful, and we look forward to, I'm sure all the examiners are looking forward to hearing all the new technical work as the candidates enroll for their new exams. So thank you and goodbye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.